Once again, we're back on Lutherans Alive with Pastor Bernie Carl from St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Uniontown. Bernie, again, thanks for coming in and sharing with us the Lenten program, a Linton Walk. We were talking before the break about the fact that this actually originated in northwestern Pennsylvania Synod with Bishop Jones and his wife participating, or at least aware of what was going on. We're to the point, I guess, we can talk about how did you actually present it to the congregation, and how do you promote something like this to get the kind of participation that you're looking for?
Sure. When I first thought of the project and tried to put it together, I thought, well, this is kind of something neat. A lot of our members were into, at the time, health, welfare. People were talking about doing walking programs, and that kind of issue. So it really started out as pretty much I want to do something for my own body. I want to do something health-wise. I also had a doctor who was telling me, Bernie, walk, get out there and do some exercise. One of the first things I did was I call this, it was a walk from Nazareth to Jerusalem. Okay. And when you look at the map, it comes out to about 80 miles. It just seemed to be a natural way to divide up each day through the 40 days of Lent, a way to say do 2 miles a day. And I said, you can do it however you want to. I did mine at the local YMCA. My wife decided that part of her walk would be swimming. So she would swim a mile or two a day. And then once we had members sign up on a chart, it was up to them to come in and mark off how many days they actually walked their 2 miles. We had a map display at in the congregation, in which after so many days I would change the map and say, okay, here's where you should be. Here's a little pin on the map. Here's where you should be after so many days. I tried to combine that then with a educational component by providing information. Like every Sunday I would say, you should be at Copernicus. Well, then here's what happened biblically in Copernicus.
Okay, so there was a connection with the biblical stories.
And we try to put the biblical story together, and you start out with Jesus being born or living in Nazareth, what happened there, and put all those as an educational component. And we had youth, we had children, as I said, we had members outside the congregation, and we had a dog. So one of our members signed up her dog to walk, and the dog finished before everybody else did. We tried to combine that with health, with education, and with commitment, the spiritual discipline of actually doing something during Lent. We asked members to sign up, here's what we're doing, here's how we're doing it. It's a way to do all these different things.
Well, I like the fact that you give people a way to indicate their participation, which also gives them a little bit more ownership. Once I make the commitment that if I said I'm going to participate, people are going to be watching to see if I'm making progress.
Yes, and that's the way it was. Yes.
Yeah. The other thing that I like about it is the fact that folks could do things in their own mode or in their own style. As you say, you could do it on a treadmill. You could ride a bike, I suppose.
Right.
You could swim. Was it possible, too, for the housewife that does 100 laps around the house a day to count that as part of her time as well?
Yes, they could wear their little pedometers, and whatever number of steps they did, they could do that. I mean, kids could do it in school. You could take a day off if you wanted and do 4 miles the next day. We tried to say that every Sunday was a day in which we remember the resurrection of Jesus. So it was a day of rest. I mean, if you wanted to use that as a makeup day, it was fine. But, it was not counted as part of the 40 days during Lent that you could do that and travel from one point to the other.
How was the early response of the congregation to the concept? Were people generally supportive?
They were supportive. They were excited. They talked among each other. When they looked at the chart that had their names on it and how far they had gone, the red X's that were on the daily chart, they could say, oh, Pastor, you haven't, you're way behind, you know, or hey, that person finished and we still got 2 weeks to go, you know, and I would say, well, you can walk back if you want to. You
There
can
you
go
go.
back from Jerusalem to Nazareth if you want to.
Well, that's true, I guess, for some people who are already involved in an exercise regimen that might have been a minimal standard to shoot for, and maybe they would want to multiply times 2
Sure.
or something
That's
as
right.
well.
And a number of our members actually went a little further than the actual chart anticipated that they were going. Hopefully they learned a little bit too through all this process.
Was it difficult for folks to maintain the average, or?
It wasn't. I think a lot of people fell through. I mean, they didn't follow through. Of course, you always have those people who this sounds like a good idea, commitment, and I'm not going to follow through. Or it's always, well, Pastor, something came up and I couldn't finish. But I said, well, you know, do the best, do the best you can.
Sure.
I mean, it's for your own well-being. It'll help you in the future to get on that walking program, that the health and welfare type program, and hopefully you can learn a little bit about what happened at the city of Nain, or what happened in Samaria, what went on in Jerusalem, and so it's a way for you to do your own little Bible studies without having to spend a lot of time at it.
And the biblical aspect, I think, is a helpful one too, because that story of the journey and the road to Jerusalem that would ultimately lead to the events of Holy Week and then ultimately to Easter, of course, are very instructive for disciples or would-be disciples along the way. There's a lot that can inspire us in our Christian walk, isn't there?
There's a lot of it there that can help us spiritually in knowing what Jesus did for us, what Christ did for us, and the process that he went to get there, and what that means for our life, the people that he touched on the way. You know, that's part of the journey too. That whether it's the widow at Nain, or whether it's the changing of water into wine, or wedding at Cana, the walking on water, or whatever. I mean, all those are processes whereby we learn about God, we learn about what he has done for us, and what that has meant to us in our life. And people had the opportunity to take all that material home. You know, there were books available. I would put a display every week of, here's where you should be, and here's some of the stories that go along with it.
We are at the point where we need to take a break again. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit more about the geographical part of it too. You mentioned the map, and we could talk about, you also mentioned having a special event to wrap things up. We'll come back and catch up on those things.